ideas require different teachings. So here goes. Sentient beings of the three realms are driven by karma. So relates back to the past teaching. The three realms are still in samsara. So these three realms, the desire realm, form realm, formless realm. So in these three realms, there are actually 31 planes of existence. 31 planes, obviously, we are familiar with categorizing that into six, right? The six realms, which is the starting right at the bottom, the hell realm, the hungry ghost, animal realm, human realm, asura, and the heavenly realm. And I said that heavenly realm, there are many realms within that. So they bring karma with them at birth and experience much suffering and later joy. Bring karma with them. So, and obviously the karma, that's why when we take rebirth, we come with this, with the karmic blueprint. And that is because our A consciousness, that when we haven't cleared them, that's why we are here in this life to cleanse them. And so this cycle existence because of the karma that we have. And so when we take out this life and we contact with the external conditions, and because of six roots, skandhas, and then we'll get afflicted by what we feel, what we see, and so on. But this experience that we get, there's much suffering and little joy. Now, some most look at it, and I'm sure you have come across a number of people like that, especially many who have done very well in their life. They live in great comfort. So because of this, they do not see the need to understand karma. And they say, my life is good, where is that karma? But little do they realize that happiness that I have in this world, in this life, will all be consumed because of the good seeds they have planted in the past. So this worldly joy that we have is actually will lead to suffering. And that happiness, I have said in the past, that worldly happiness is a moment between two unhappiness. So with ultimate unsurpassed enlightenment, we apply loving kindness and exercise compassion. So we apply loving kindness and exercise compassion. So loving kindness is you would do what you can to help others, but compassion is greater than loving kindness. You just don't do what you can. You do whatever you already have. And that compassion, obviously the number of stories of this compassion, it's more since we're under MCO, so I tell you another story about compassion. I may have mentioned very briefly in passing. This is a very great cultivator called Asanga. Asanga has been practicing and his practice was very much on Maitreya Buddha. And Buddha Maitreya, mostly he's not a Buddha yet, it's a Bodhisattva, Buddha Maitreya Bodhisattva. And so he actually went to a secluded practice for 6 years. And after 6 years, and he couldn't connect through to Maitreya Bodhisattva. And so he descended the mountain and he saw someone polishing an iron rod with a silk cloth. And he looked at it and said, I've been away for 6 years. And I look at these people, how can you polish? And so he asked the man, what is he trying to do? And he said, I don't have a needle, so I'm polishing this with a silk cloth. And he realized, he looked at it and said, this world is still very deluded. So and yet the person is so steadfast in what he's doing. So he went back up to the mountain and said, I'm not ready for the world. And he went up for another 3 more years and is sitting in contemplation. They learned the teaching on Bodhisattva Maitreya. Another 3 years, he descended down again, and this time he saw this person who was polishing a rock with feathers. And I asked him, man, what are you trying to do? He said, this rock is blocking the sunshine to my house, so I'm trying to move this rock without destroying it. So he was polishing with a feather, and he told himself, no, that's not going to, I still not ready for this world, but yet this person is so diligent in what he's trying to do. So he went up to the mountain again for another 3 more years. And this time he descended the mountain and he gave up. Basically, he just given up. And this after 12 years. And as he walked down, he saw a dog. Now, this dog has only 2 front legs. The rest of the body was rotten. And there were maggots on the lower part of the body. And yet this dog was very fierce, was barking to everyone who walked past. And so he walked past, but as he stepped forward, he looked back. Out of compassion, he decided to help the dog to remove the maggots. And so what he did was that this is the 2 different versions of the story, but this version that I think sounds more logical. He actually cut a piece of his flesh out so that when he removed the maggots can be placed on his flesh, the very cut off. But then he realized that if he removed the maggots with his hands, he would may destroy the maggots. So he bent forward. The only way he could remove those maggots compassionately was with his tongue. So he bent forward to remove the maggots. But as he did that, the dog was no longer there. And he opened his eyes and he saw Maitreya. And so he said, I have been practicing for 12 years, but you never manifested in front of me, but why now? So Maitreya told Sangha that that because you have practiced a lot, but this is the only time what has been afflicting your mind. Your mind has been afflicted that you couldn't see me, and I have always been with you, but you couldn't see me because of your affliction. But that moment of compassion that you exercised on the rotten dog, which was Maitreya manifestation of Maitreya Bodhisattva, that removed that affliction of his mind and you could able to see Maitreya. So if you don't believe, you say, put me on your shoulder. So he put him on the shoulder and he walked to the market. And you ask the people whether they can see me. So they ask everybody, can you see what's on my shoulder? They say, no, nobody can see Maitreya on the shoulder. And except one lady. So this lady said, what you have is only a rotten dog. So this is the point about how penetrating compassion is. And that different capabilities need different teachings. So those who were highly afflicted couldn't see anything on his Sangha's shoulder. And those who have cultivated well and removed some of the affliction were able to see the rotten dog. But when a Sangha exercised that good compassion, he removed all his affliction and he could see Maitreya. So impartial and discerning wisdom are both used. And obviously we need that because the impartial wisdom is the one there is no line, no boundaries, and see everyone as one. And the discerning wisdom is the capability for us to use our mind and our conscious to understand things. So in Master's explanation, the minds of sentient beings are never settled. And this for us because we do not That's why our afflictive mind, we have still a lot of dust in us. So we may form aspiration now, vowing to accept the teachings with reverence and joy. So this is multiple, many lifetimes, infinite lifetimes, and innumerable lifetimes of cultivation and practice to do that. So due to a habitual tendencies, the ignorance we have not yet eliminated, the sounds from etc. Surrounding can easily tempt us to go astray. So this story a sangha that I just told you about, and so obviously, either what we see that the world is still deluded, we go back still and practice. Or we can see that as wanting to be more diligent in our practice. But at the end of the day, what we need to do is to eliminate all this ignorance and afflictions in our mind. So wholesome thoughts can become ignorant, even though sometimes we want to generate wholesome thoughts. And this is quite clearly, that's why we have Master told us, explained to us about the four right ethics. So wholesome thoughts can become ignorant and desirous ones too, because if we wholesome thought, because we're still afflicted that we have, the next moment it will become an unwholesome thought. So if we cling on that unwholesome thought, before we know it, we will regress. So we must be aware and mindful. So sometimes when we practice, much that we remain wholesome as much as we can. So we've got to have that consciousness to be able to be aware when a thought arises. What is that thought? And that is called deep awareness. And then obviously mindful is the manifestation of our conduct manifestation of the conduct in our practice on others. So we got to be in other words, we need also to have, when we are being aware of ourselves, we need to be have compassion for our own self. When I have compassion of our own self, we are people then to practice inside out. And you need to be mindful. As I explained some time ago, you practice outside in, and how we contact with people. Since we're walking the path, we must not deviate from our course. Only then we can avoid being confused again and bring bad karma into our future life. Because whatever we do in this life, we are planting seeds for our next life. So we do not want to plant unwholesome karmic seeds that will spend a lifetime practicing and obviously will be regressing. So I'll pick up on this lifetime to empty as much as we can, to cleanse off and purify whatever karmic seeds that come to us. So obviously, no matter how well we practice, our back karmic seeds is unlikely. I use the word unlikely because I won't discount that someone is possible that one person can, some people can be enlightened in this lifetime. But these karmic seeds, when the condition is not right, it will not manifest in this life. So you had to manifest in future lifetime. So ultimately, the unsurpassed enlightenment is the supreme universal and perfect enlightenment. And that is the ultimate enlightenment. And what this line is trying to say is that there are different stages of enlightenment. Master explained about this, right? So you talk about the hearers, you talk about the Vajika Buddhas, and the Bodhisattva. Even in the Bodhisattva level, there are 10 levels. So, but our ultimate one is obviously the supreme enlightenment, which is Buddha. So we can truly awaken how we are one with this world. We'll be able to achieve unconditional loving kindness and universal compassion. And this is, I mean, when you pass by that door, would we bend down and lick the maggots out of the door so that they can place the dog into upon our flesh? So this is the ultimate compassion. Obviously, there's also a story of the Buddha in a past life, how he sacrificed his body to a hungry tiger and a dying tiger. Okay, that's another different story. So different capabilities need different teaching. So impartial and discerning wisdom are both used. So each person has different capabilities and conditions. So when you look at this line, yes, Master explained that in the Lotus Sutra. And I have listened, or we have listened to a lot of teachings by Master. I have listened to a lot of Dharma masters and teachers. And if I were to say there's one common trait among the great masters and great teachers, is that people will find that it's very repetitive. But they do so for a reason. They do so for a reason because different people have different capabilities. So they have to cater for slow learners. So that's the reason why a lot of repetition. But must also remember something. But when you go into contemplative listening, even though it's repeated, it'll give you a different meaning each time. Okay, but if you listen with your ears and your mind, you won't be able to get it. Okay, so this is the one that you take years and years of training for you to go into that listening. And if you contemplate on every teaching, no matter how simple that teaching is, it can manifest into many different meanings. So these different methods, the door of compassion is not singular. When I open a door of compassion, we are only opening one door. It is like the openings of a net. So all this, obviously this is the metaphor of this net that is woven together with golden cords. And so this all encompassing compassion that we should have. So with compassion, we open up many doors of skillful means. So therefore, each time we meet someone, when you have the compassion, irrespective of no boundaries and no lines drawn between you and whoever needs the help, obviously each time you do that, you learn a method, you learn a skillful means. Our goal is to purify people's mind, and for suffering sentient beings, we must create the right causes and conditions. First, we must help them feel safe and give them the material things they need. Why do we do this? Because if the person is trying to fight for survival and the mind is highly disturbed, you can't go in and teach them the Dharma. I said, let me tell you the Lotus Sutra. He's not interested. So the mind must be in a condition to be able to learn the Dharma and learn and aspire to learn. So whatever limit capability there is, so we must alleviate the suffering of someone so they feel safe to be able to learn. And we give them fearlessness and be able to conquer whatever afflictions and hindrances or concerns that they have in learning. Then lastly, we give them the Dharma with compassionate methods. So we need to cast the net widely to provide safety and peace to everyone and universally share the Dharma. So the Buddha manifested and devised suitable teachings according to our capabilities. And these greatest teachings are still available today. So the Four Noble Truths, we still have to learn the Four Noble Truths despite we traveling on the Mahayana path. So skillful means can help sentient beings completely accept the Dharma. And this acceptance of the Dharma and what masters very often do. I mean, the chapter 3, for example, on the parables, I mean, how long have been going for? This must be, we have been listening to it for more than 200 lessons by now. So all this thing is still going on. And that's the reason why, I mean, must have his own discerning wisdom that he will say, for us to slowly understand that, because it's so profound. So a lot of times, part of it will get repeated because it repeated, but from a different context. So the lessons learned, without realizing it, in our past life, we likely form negative affinities with others. So now, no matter what we do, we are still criticized by some people, and so that's why I've done so much good. And I'm sure you heard all the stories. Why is it that I'm not as good, well off as the other person, or why do you do this to me? Why does this happen to me? So, but when someone understand the Dharma, you realize that this is karmic retribution. And these are life becomings. I've explained to you all in the particular life becomes that come to us. So for us to resolve what we have planted negatively in the past. So nevertheless, we think of ways to help them and understand and transform them. So, and as we go out to serve and to do that, we want to make sure that when we help and transform them, we do not get afflicted by whatever transgression they may have. We should let them be and later devise ways to transform them, because sometimes I'm sure you come across again people who are like that, much like you try to so-called share with them, but they can't, they just cannot, and they will find ways why you are wrong. I mean, there's no point drumming up with them. And so sometimes you just have to, because the condition is just not right yet for the seed to manifest. So you've got to give them space so that they find the space, and hopefully one day they will realize. So this supreme enlightenment, the perfect enlightenment is with the Buddha Dharma and what the Buddha has led for us. And that we can then share with the sentient beings, then the 6 realms can be liberated. And that is the vow that we have undertaken. To spread this teaching across the world, we must work together like the curtain of connected poles, the net woven by stringing poles together one by one with golden cords. So this is the universal compassion that we are trying to propagate through various ways, and what Tzu Chi is trying to do in various countries. So in contemplation. So virtues and methods. The methods to realize wisdom. And that's what Master is trying to teach us, and is trying to teach us virtues. Virtues are therefore the means to realize wisdom. Without virtues, without having a pure heart, the mind cannot be clear. And that's what the story Asanga that I just explained to you. So that compassion, that the ultimate compassion that he showed, those were the virtues, and that's where he came to realize the wisdom. That I managed to learn the wisdom from Maitreya Bodhisattva. So clarity of the mind comes from purity of the heart. When the heart is expansive, the mind is extensive. So on relationship, differences in relationship. The difference between peace and trouble is just a fine line. And why? And this sometimes we find that this affliction that we have with other people is just purely just a fine line, because what falls outside the line is the difference. Why is there a line in the first place? Because the line is put on by us, because this is my boundary, this is my line. So whatever you fall, I cannot accept. I'll differentiate, I discriminate, and that's why that you have this issue. So when that falls outside the line, there's no peace and harmony when there are differences. So dissolve the line, and you will find the oneness in the duality, and there is nothing you cannot accept. So this is about the difference between conditional Dharma and unconditional Dharma. Because in the conditioned practice, there is a duality. But we need the duality to understand, because you need darkness to understand light. So this is where we are in this worldly life. So once you realize that realization of the emptiness of duality, then we can go into unconditioned practice. So peace is abounding in the world, yet absent in the minds of many. Everybody wants peace, but they hold on to the line and of differences. Thank God, and brothers and sisters, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, brother. Another marvelous round of sharing, really using capabilities to guide us, to share with us your wonderful wisdom. Thank you so much, BrotherChin. Yeah. Next.